practice. I could tell myself to relax it. Will be better next time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide.
You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay.
It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo!
Wait, was it you?
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard, but for long, the fight's too hard. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up.
What is up? What is up, you guys? We are back at it again. Another day here in the epic saga of 100 days of Rootkit. I hope y'all are excited to continue our journey. Today, we're going to get into JavaScript and hopefully inch one step closer to closing this loop for the APIs and why we even talk to them about them in the first place. Well, we showed some examples already, but we're going to show some more examples here. The JavaScript lets us level up our whole journey here. All right, lets us level up our whole journey. Let me pull the streams here up because they are missing. 1 second, so that way I can see what all y'all are saying. All right. Why does it say it's second? There we go. That way I can. Whoa. YouTube glitching out, saying that we aren't live. We are live. All right, sweet. Let's continue here with our intro. If you don't know, we are Rootkit, a non-profit organization here in the US. There we go. Non-profit organization based here in the US of A. Don't go to college. Don't go to any other boot camp. Just get our cert, get certified, and bammo, whammo, get a job. All right, it's really that simple. On top of all this free stuff we're doing, if you go over to our blog section, you can enter our week 12 giveaway. Enter it now to win some free merch, not just the one mystery item, but because of things that happened last week, we're giving 3 items away. 2 epic t-shirts and 1 mystery item. All right, 2 epic t-shirts and 1 mystery item. So make sure you press the green button here and just show that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, following on Twitch. Very, very simple things. And whammo bammo, you're entered. Now, if you like what we're doing and you want to help us, all right, want to help us out, we are a charity, which means 100% of the donations you do is tax deductible, which is the best types of anything with tax in the name, all right? If you donate today, you can get certain rewards like our epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, and our epic sweater, which I got on right now. It has the Rootkit logo on the back. It's limited edition, only during the 100 days of Rootkit stream, all right? Also, all donations are matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations during this live stream. So make sure you donate. It's like you donate twice as much. And we have pillars along the way, like street teaching for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and the one no one wants to see is me shaving my beard. All right, I do that, all my knowledge goes out the door. All right, so we don't need to hit that one. Alrighty. What questions do y'all have? I guess the last thing, I am in the 100 days of Rootkit chat. All right, 100 days of Rootkit chat. So if you go over to the events chat, you can jump in there if you're a Patreon or Discord premium member and just ask questions verbally. All right, no reason to just type it in the chat. You can just ask questions verbally at any time. Alrighty, that's all I got for the intro. So let's get into it, shall we? JavaScript. Another language we're going to talk about today, JavaScript. Now, HTML, I think we've talked about that more than enough. And CSS, pretty neat, right? Pretty neat. Web 1.0, right? Web 1.0 was basically just HTML and CSS. Very static content. There's not really any concept per se of like logging in and just doing stuff. And if you could, it would be all done server side only, and you'd be served these static web pages. Right? What's static web page? Everything we've been making so far. There's no way you can make, for example, like a like button that gets liked and then will asynchronously send a request to a server, update it, and then update, various other things. Or I don't know, you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, you see that watch counter, it will go up, it will go down based off who's coming in and going away. That's impossible with static pages, right? With old Web 1.0 static pages, all right? So that was a big issue because you can't really have per se even a streaming service like Twitch or YouTube live streaming when you have these static services. Let me see if I can get the Web 1.0. see if we can get a good site here with some explanations. So very basic, right? Very basic. Did 1.0 include? I don't think it included JavaScript. So all static pages. There we go. Yeah. So static pages. All right. Static pages. You get some GIFs. You get the links. All right. This is kind of what it looked like. Now, what it looked like visually, sure, looks old, but that's not kind of the point. You can have really good looking static pages, doing like a Web 1.0, you know, implementation of stuff. Everything we've done was technically Web 1.0 so far. It's all static, and you can make it look really good. So it has nothing to do with the look. It's just the actual feel and interaction. It's static pages, right? Static pages, which is the big issue here. And I guess it does include server-based interaction, all right? Server-based interaction. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. Web 2.0, which is pretty much the web you know today, was largely created with the development of JavaScript. All right, JavaScript. JavaScript, literally a different word than Java. They are different words for a reason. They are completely different things, right? They are completely different things. They have no correlation to each other whatsoever. They are made by different people. They don't even look the same. They are completely different. Do not confuse Java and JavaScript together. They are completely different. What's a great example of this? I always have a great example for this one. Forgetting it right now. Whatever. We're moving on. Well, I don't know, like a train and a car, right? They both have a motor. Does not mean they're the same thing. They're completely different things. They just conveniently both have a motor. They both have, what do you call it? Wheels. They both have doors. They both have windows. Yes, there's some similarities, but they're completely different. They're completely different things, right? JavaScript and Java are completely different. JavaScript was made for browsers. It was not made for servers. It was not made for what it's morphed into today. It was made for the web. It was made for adding web interaction on web browsers, right? It was a language made for these browsers. And it allowed you to now start doing dynamic content generation. So you can have JavaScript, which will run on your browser, automatically like load things after someone's visited your site, or refresh things automatically in the background, or reach out to a stream and live stream and update that stream, maybe do all sorts of new things. It allows you the access to APIs, so you can go ping APIs and get data and bring back up. Just everything you know today is 2.0. Is 2.0, which is super awesome. It's pretty much the internet as you know it. And that was made in like the early 2000s. Let's see the timeline here. If I was, doesn't really say exactly here, but early 2000s are really when people started moving to 2.0. I think it was actually probably the late 90s actually, because that's when the web bubble, the web tech bubble started coming online and then burst at 2000. Don't quote me on the time there. Probably a Wikipedia page somewhere for it. We're just now entering Web 3.0. All right, the Web 3.0 era, which is highly controversial, but doesn't matter if people don't believe it or not. It's happening, whether you want to believe it or not. It is a thing that is happening right now. It is massive, it is viral, and it's only going to get larger and larger. So this is a integration of mostly what do you call it, the homebrewness of, God, why am I forgetting names right now? Crypto. All right, crypto and Web3 integration in regards to it, and ownership. All right, some people describe it as read, write, execute. Execute is generic, I think a little too generic, but it's pretty much complete attribution and ownership of whatever you have online. The most common places you'll find this kind of integrated right now would be in regards to games, specifically like the buzzword for it would be metaverse product games. So these would be things like Roblox or Minecraft. Look, Roblox, yeah, I know. But the core concept of it is Web 3.0. Effectively, you have a main hub, Roblox, where you have an identity, and you own that identity, and you can buy assets, buy skins, whatever, and you own those. And then as you traverse through the interwebs, or in this case, with the Roblox scenario, the Roblox world, it's always attributable to you. Everything you've owned and all the assets you have, you can bring to you to these new areas, these new locations, in new worlds, and show them off in XYZ. That's kind of the concept of it. We can give a talk more so about this in the specifics on a later date, not really for 100 Days Rootkit, but it's effectively fueled by blockchain technology, right? Blockchain technology, which is a whole grand scheme of things, right? A whole grand scheme of things. And people might think NFTs, blockchain, whatever is cringe. Guess what? You're just naive, because literally you're already using it. You don't even know. You don't even know that you're using it, and you're already using it. It's inevitable. All right. So let's see here. For JavaScript, no. This is not where I wanted to go. I want to go to the Wikipedia page. So JavaScript, also known as JS, all right, is the de facto base web language. It has morphed over the years, specifically in the last 10 years, into an absolute monster. All right, absolute monster. Honestly, I've been waiting for it to be completely replaced and cut off, because it is disgusting what it's morphed into. But with the outcome of TypeScript and then right now Bun, I think it might be saved. I think it's actually really practical now. And then Web3 WebAssembly is coming out. So back to the history part, JavaScript came out to make sites more dynamic. There have been a couple competitors over the years. The only one that I have on the top of my head would be Dart, which is Google's competitor to JavaScript, but it never kicked off unless you use Flutter. It never really kicked off. So this is pre-built. Every browser you use will have JavaScript integration. If you right click and go to your inspect element, you're going to see that there's been a tab here the whole time called console. What is this console for? This console is for your JavaScript console, because JavaScript, the script part, it's a scripting language. Well, it's supposed to be a scripting language. Again, it's morphed into everything. So it runs very similar to Python to an extent, all right? How Python's built on top of C, and there's a lot of C underlying code that gets executed because Python calls are effectively wrappers for it. JavaScript's kind of the same way, except there's a language that built the browser, and then the browser interprets JavaScript, all right? So there's usually another layer, but with the modern advents of a lot of optimizations for JavaScript, it's actually pretty optimized and quite fast. All right, it's quite fast. This allows you to interact with it, so you can set variables in here. So you can say var x equals 10. So in what do you call it? In JavaScript, you have to. It's not like Python where you can just say like my hat equals yellow. All right. You actually have to, it's kind of like C where you have to say if you're making a variable, and there's a couple different variable types, which we'll go over here in a second. So it's kind of like a mixture, and if you see if I type X here, it will print out 10. It's kind of a mixture of C and Python in its syntax, right? It's a mixture of C and Python in its syntax. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. There is JavaScript pretty much on every single website you use today. Also, the cookie stuff that you see all the time, pretty much you can never get away from cookies, because that's how a lot of data is stored onto your computer. All right, so you can see information here in regards to the cookies. This is where JavaScript stores information potentially about you, your current logged in session, when that session expires, etc., etc., etc. Because again, think, if you're programming in Python and you need to save something, where does it go? If you're programming something in C and you want to save something like locally, where does it go? It goes into a file that you have created. You can't create files in your browser here. Like, yeah, you can download files, but you can't just create them. You need to save data somewhere. So your browser has a built-in database, all right? And that's the whole cookie system. And there's also a bunch of different storage stuff here that you can utilize. But that's where the de facto space for a lot of services are. And I find it comical because the EU passed that law, so that's why all those banners are here now with, oh, do you agree for the cookies? Half of them don't even care if you agree or not, because they're going to use cookies regardless, because again, they have to. They have to just to run the site in the first place. Let's see here. So Microsoft had their own version called JavaScript. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on here. JavaScript, again, it's morphed a lot over the years, right? People pretty much never program in normal vanilla JavaScript anymore, right? It's not really a thing people do. They usually will always use a library. So pretty much up until the late the late 2000s, it was pretty normal to program in vanilla JavaScript. So the base language, and that's pretty much it. Then the first quote-unquote framework came around in order to make things a lot faster, right? To make things a lot faster. And it just took off in popularity. You could never not use it because it was just so popular. And that was jQuery, all right? Because JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript is not, it's not always easy or intuitive to do certain things in the language. For example, if you have an input box that you want to collect input from and then do some processing on it in JavaScript and then give a result back, you can do it in vanilla JavaScript, but it might be very complex. And then we have this whole entire other concept of the DOM and re-rendering DOM parts and elements, because again, you're pretty much running a rendering engine, right? You're running a rendering engine that's rendering things on the screen. You can even go full-blown and render 3D objects on the screen and technically use JavaScript to run a game engine, or to be a game engine. And there's libraries out for that you can do, because again, it's for rendering stuff. So jQuery came around and it allowed you to pretty much quickly do things. So it's this power, the $sign was like the big power move for DOM traversal, which we'll talk about the DOM here in a little bit. All right, I know you guys are very curious about that. It allows for quick traversal of it, because when you're not using jQuery, it's quite a lot of typing to do for something very, very simple, which I guess you'll see here in a second. Let's go ahead and pull up the JavaScript tutorial here on W3. Please, again, we're in, how hard is it, is JavaScript compared to Python? The same? I don't think one is particularly harder than the other. I think JavaScript is more of a rabbit hole you can jump down into, and it gets very messy very quick and kind of disgusting, but the reasons why it gets disgusting is a completely different reason. Actually learning it though isn't difficult. By disgusting I mean like when you learn Python, you've learned Python and you're pretty much ready for anything. When you learn JavaScript, you haven't learned JavaScript yet, because when you learn base JavaScript, it's pretty much useless. All right, base JavaScript is almost useless. You can't just learn base JavaScript. You now need to go learn other things. It's a requirement to even use JavaScript effectively. You most likely will have to use or learn how to utilize Node. And then that may still not be enough. You may then have to go either down a couple different paths. The Express path, which is kind of dying out right now. The web world moves very, very quick. Just because you learn something today, in 3 years, it might be the most popular thing right now. In 3 years, it might be completely dead and everyone's moved on to something else. It's very shifty. It's very shifty, all right? It's literally like worse than a teenager in how it just changes its mind and goes crazy. Like it's absolutely crazy. Because then you have the React path you can go down. There's the Vue path you can go down, the Angular path, which are all pretty much the major pathways. And then it's always better to learn multiple of them. It's a whole entire mess. And that's not even including TypeScript, which is another thing on it. And then there's, like I talked about, Bun, a whole bunch of stuff, right? A whole bunch of stuff. We're not helping with the aimbot today. We're not helping with the aimbot today. You can ask on chill Q&As for that. So let us continue here. So for the JavaScript introduction, so they have a little DOM slide here. Let's go actually, wait, was it on the home? All right, they don't have a DOM slide here, so I might have to look something up real quick. I just want to show this off real quick. This is only possible with JavaScript. Manipulating an image, for example, to change, right? We click on turn on, it turns on, turn off, it turns off, all right? All this is two different images that are being swapped out one after each other. This is only possible with JavaScript because it allows us to do dynamic stuff. This is dynamic. You can tell it's dynamic because the page is not reloading. If you look, here and here, where you'll usually see when the page reloads, you'll see the page does not reload. Also, if I not view page source, if I inspect the element and go to console and then turn off and on, not network, sorry, turn off and on, you'll see that the page is not reloading, right? The page is not reloading. That's what makes JavaScript in your websites now dynamic. Before, in the before days, your site would reload every single time you clicked a button. And anytime you wanted to see like a view count go up or etc., you would have to refresh the page. Now, this is the DOM. All right. It uses a document object model. I believe that's what it's called. JavaScript DOM. Oh, here we go. So now that we've talked about HTML, this should make a little bit more sense to you guys. All right. So the HTML DOM, right? The document object model. This is what JavaScript uses to navigate in order to find what you want to manipulate on your web page. For example, change an image to a different image. All right. It's not as easy as just saying, I want that image to change. You have to literally like figure out like what image, like where. So that's what you can use the DOM for. So the DOM is automatically created, done for you through the browser, right? The browser is going to handle all of this for you. You just need to be able to navigate through it. How the DOM looks is this. It's kind of set up like a tree where the beginning of the DOM is called document. So you can see here, we say document to start interacting with the DOM. AKA the DOM is how this document, the DOM is how we can edit our HTML effectively. Because, if you're changing the image from one image to another, you're editing that HTML in real time. So that's why we are accessing the document, aka our web page, in order to manipulate the current page. Let me check here for any questions so far. So you'll see the next thing we do from the document is we're going to have access to the root element of our HTML file, aka that HTML tag. And from there, this is what we kind of just get automatically. And from there, you can then go through and navigate your HTML to get exactly where you need to go. So if you want to change some text on this title element, remember the title is the tab title. If you want to change that, then you'll have to follow this path to get to the text variable in order to manipulate the text. If you want to change something like the link text, the header text, the link itself, aka that href, you can do that too. You just need to follow the structure down to it, and then you can get to that variable, or it says attribute here because variable, attribute, they're the same thing. This is just attached to a class. The text here is also a variable. You can see this more visually when you are just viewing your HTML and if you tab it all correctly. All right, this visually is your DOM. So it always starts, right here at HTML tag. Then you got your head and your body, and inside there you have more divs. So you can see the tabs, the indentations, important to have because it's not just visually keeping things. Let me zoom in this for you guys. It's not only visually keeping things clean, but also when you start using your JavaScript, it will allow you for potentially easier navigation through it. Now, this could be pretty cancerous, right? This could be pretty cancerous if you had to navigate, for example, I guess all the way down to this image here, because it's in a div, that's in a div, that's in a div, that's in more divs, that's in the body, that's in the HTML. All right, lots of crap you would have to go through. All right, so there are shortcuts. There are shortcuts for getting to those items, which we'll talk about here in a second. Let's see what else it says here. JavaScript can change all HTML elements on the page. JavaScript can change all HTML attributes on the page. So remember, elements, aka the things I keep calling tags, right? Can change all of those. Can change any attribute we want. Can change any of the CSS at any time. Can remove elements and attributes, so it can change them, it can remove them, it can make new ones, it can react to ones, and it can create new events. So pretty much anything you want to do, it can pretty much do. So let's see here. Standard object model, programming interface, HTML, objects, properties, methods, events. All right, let's go back to the introduction. So the way you can cheat, all right, so you don't have to go through that whole path, is there's some pre-built functions on this document object. So if we go to inspect and go to our console here, because remember, this is JavaScript right here, we can just type in document. All right, and when we do document, we can do dot, and then we can see all of the functions that are available to us. So I highly recommend taking time to look through all of these and see what may or may not be available to you. A lot of this not really going to be too important, but the get elements section will be important. If you don't want to go searching for stuff yourself and making a very long query effectively, you can search using get element by ID, get element by class name, get element by name, get element by tag name, and get element by tag name NS. Not quite sure what that means. All right, again, not a front end pro. So get element by ID, what does this mean? The class name one kind of makes sense. We've talked about class names before, specifically with CSS. Does that have to do with something with CSS? What does this ID thing mean? Great questions. Do I have some, come on, is there no example HTML here? So The element ID means the element, aka that tag. All right, so let's pull up our HTML here. So the element, it would be stuff like our div and this div, and then the a tag here, and then, or I should say element, the image element. Again, like I said multiple times before in these tutorials, I'm going to be calling them tags, but they're called more properly elements. All right. So the element are those items. The ID is that thing we talked about a little bit earlier in regards to in-link links. It's a two-step process. You have an href with that # or hashtag in the front, and then a variable name. And then later on your page, you would use the attribute called ID. The attribute called ID. That's what this is referring to. So what's going to happen is this will automatically find where in here we have an item with the attribute ID equal to demo. And then it will replace the inner HTML with this, right? The inner HTML with this. So let's kind of see this in action here on our web page, right? On our web page, or maybe we should make a new web page. Let's go ahead and make a new web page for this. Let's move all of our code into older. I'm gonna move everything into this older folder. You don't have to. I'm just gonna get it out of the way so it doesn't get confusing for anyone. And then inside of website, I'm gonna make a new index.html file. There we go. So we're just starting from new, just from a blank. Let's go ahead and reveal in here, this, open. There we go. So it's completely blank file. So in here, let's go ahead and just make our HTML tags here. And then we'll just do our head. And then after the head, let's go ahead and do our body. And then in here, let's go ahead and say h1 hello world. All right. So we refresh this. Very simple page here. It just has an h1 that says hello world. Right? Nothing complex, nothing crazy. We can add JavaScript to this. Right? We can add JavaScript to this. How we can do that is, typically you want to put your JavaScript at the end of the page, but you may need to put it at the beginning. It just all depends. And how you can do that is you just make a script tag. If you do a script tag, this will allow you to type in JavaScript right here in the HTML page. You'll see I'm getting a little suggestion here from the Copilot, which I'm using right now, and it's been actually fantastic. I highly recommend you use Copilot, especially they have their new GPT-4 update rolling out soon. It is kind of pricey. It's $10 a month, so I don't really commit it to it unless you're going to try deving a lot. It can explain stuff for you, auto-generate code for you. It's really, really nice. So it's recommending us to do this. So let's do this. This is another thing you can do in JavaScript. So this is JavaScript code inside of these tags. Console is just like we saw in here when we do inspect element. It's the console. We can access the console directly by doing console. .log will log a message to the console. And what message do we want to log to the console? We want to log hello world. So when I refresh, you'll see hello world gets printed here in the console. This is effectively how you do a print statement in JavaScript. All right, this is how you do a print statement in JavaScript. All right, let's move on here with the example code we got right here. So, document get element by ID. We can see this in action here on our page. Right now, if we refresh, you'll see absolutely nothing happens, and actually we get an error. All right, console here is where you're going to see a lot of your errors pop out. All right, they're not going to happen here in the web page. You don't execute the web page. How you execute the web page is via the renderer, the web renderer, right? Using your web browser. When you reload your page here, this is where you'll see errors. So this line number 10, is giving us an error here. So you can see right here, this is line 10. This 10 right here means the line, and the next one is the column, aka the how many characters over. So the 51st character, and this is the error it's giving us. Right? It's giving this error because it never found anything from this get elements by ID. All right? Why? Because we have nothing with the ID of demo in our site. The web page still loads and still looks normal. The user will never see this error, right? But the error is still going on, right? This is pretty common on a lot of pages. If you actually inspect and look at the console, you'll actually see errors all the time being caused by their sites, right? Errors are caused all the time. Let's go and fix this error. If we give this h1 tag an ID called demo, now when we refresh, we should change this. This is hello JavaScript. So now if we refresh, you're going to see this no longer says hello world. This now says hello JavaScript. All right, this now says hello JavaScript. Let me go and shrink this a little bit. So as a quick review, this is what's showing up on the web page originally. All right, this is actually loading and being displayed on our page here. After it's being loaded and displayed, it quickly is going to be replaced by this new text. Why? Document is our whole document here, right? Our whole document here. This allows us to navigate through our HTML file effectively. Get element by ID is one of many functions we have available to search through this. IDs, why I said earlier you don't want to use your CSS with the IDs, all right? Even though you can, you typically don't want to, because classes are for CSS and they're meant for it, and that's why they exist. IDs are meant for integration with JavaScript, right? Typically that's their sole purpose, is for the integration with JavaScript. So that way you have unique items with unique IDs that you can then refer to. When you refer to an item, we see .html is a thing here. If we just do dot, you can see we have a lot of items here that are potentially a part of this element, right? Potentially a part of this element. Inner HTML is one of them. There's also inner text. What's the difference between inner HTML and inner text? Great question. Inner text will let you replace the text and the text only. Inner HTML will allow you to not just add text, but also add HTML. What do I mean by that? Let's make this, let's put a BR tag right here, and let's refresh, and you'll see the BR tag is now adding a new line here. It's now adding a new line here, because you can now add HTML and it will render it properly to the screen. If you were to use something else like inner text here and we refresh, you'll see that it will only replace text. It will render it as text only. It's not going to actually render out any of the HTML. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? Any questions? I don't see any questions. So we're going to continue on here, right? We're going to continue on here. So this is how we can effectively start interacting with our page, and then we can start querying out to our server, our API, getting that data, and then displaying it All right, we still don't know how to go out to our server and get data. We still don't know how to potentially do like for loops or anything like that with the data, but we do know potentially how to render the data on the screen. All right, so we got 1 out of 3 right now, 1 out of 3. So this is a way you can go about doing it. Now, jQuery, like I mentioned earlier, was revolutionary because now this is the old way of doing stuff. With jQuery, you effectively just had to do this instead. Again, programmers are lazy. We don't want to type a bunch of crap out. So this is way, way more convenient, right? Way easier, and get element by ID is a very, very common thing for people to do, right? Very, very common thing for people to do. So let us continue on here with our JavaScript journey. Let's see what other examples they have. So they have examples here for setting that inner HTML. An example here showing off, I guess it doesn't show you unless we click on try now, showing off right here how we can effectively use JavaScript to set. This actually would be a good one to show. My image, this is, hold on, let me see if I can grab the actual image here. I guess we can just view it right here. So what's going on here is there are special attributes for taking actions on your HTML items, right? There are special attributes. There's these things called onClick, there's an onEdit, there's onLoad, there's a bunch of other ones that you can go look into and utilize for special functionality. And a lot of these are on pretty much every element. So even though click here is on button, you can also use onClick on potentially other items like your p tags and do weird behavior based off people clicking like text here. All right, not just buttons, not just buttons. Now, when you look here in onClick typically will be looking for JavaScript. All right, so JavaScript for it to execute. We can see here that if we use that document.getElementID, we can look for the element with the image tag ID. If we look around here, we'll find that the item with the image, my image ID is this image element here. On this image element, it has a property called source, src. We can access that by doing .src because effectively this is turning the HTML into an object for us to navigate, aka the DOM, the document object model, right? It's turning our HTML into objects, which then we can use dot notation to navigate through. So if we do .source, we can now replace the source attribute on that element with a new new string of text. All right, new string of text. So you can see here, these are identical lines of code except for the image it's setting. One is called bulb on and the other one is called bulb off. All right, and when we click on and off, you're going to see that it's going to change the bulb on and off. So it adds that cool functionality. You can also change the CSS. Again, remember everything can have the style tag attached to it. Sorry, the style attribute attached to it in the element. So to access that, you can go and do .style. And inside of .style, you have a bunch of potential things you can manipulate from the CSS directly. The names from the CSS items are typically going to be converted from the dash notation to camel case. So you can see here, font size in CSS normally is going to be font tac size, but in JavaScript it's going to be all one word with in camel case, because again, the tags are like a CSS specific thing. Can't really do that in other languages. So just more examples of here how you can then go about manipulating the CSS. Let's see here. For function creation, we're gonna go away from this for a second. So JavaScript is a full-on language, right? It's a full-on language, just like Python, just like C, just like everything, or I guess those are the only two languages we really hit on here. It's a full-on language, which means everything that you've expected to be in a language from Python or be in a language from C will be in JavaScript. So logic, loops, variables, math, functions, classes, all right? It is a object-oriented language. The way you can tell if a language is object-oriented or not, for most cases, is if it's using this dot notation like crazy, which you can see we're using the dot notation like crazy. Also, it uses DOM, which is going to be, which has object in its name. So to make variables in JavaScript, we can easily say var. Var means we can make a variable that is reassignable, right? A variable that is reassignable. So a typical variable we're used to. And then you just give it a name and say it, it needs to be equal to something. So of course it doesn't need X. It could be anything we want, right? And this is how we can create a variable. And we can print this variable out onto the console. So if we say var ASDF and then print this, we can go look at the console here, refresh, and you'll see that it gets printed out. The number 5 gets printed out because that's what our variable is here. It is 5. Additionally, we can do addition and all of the same operators that you're used to in Python will be available for you here in JavaScript. So that should be pretty straightforward for you guys. Additionally, we can use things like if statements, else if statements, else statements, while loops, and for loops. So VS Code is really great for JavaScript. Don't tab on the first one, go down to this next one with the whole if statement spelled out. And this will auto-generate you an if statement. It will look just like if statements do in C. It uses the exact same syntax. You will say if, then you will have parentheses with the condition inside of it. So if ASDF is equal to 5, let's call this instead my number. All right. So if my number is equal to 5, we're going to go ahead and log. Also, by the way, VS Code is nice. If you type in log, and press down 1, this will auto generate the code for the console.log, so you don't have to type it out. So if I press tab here, you'll see, there you go, it typed it out. And Copilot's trying to write my code right now. My number is 5. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say yummy. All right. So if we refresh, you'll see yummy now outputs. If we do something like 6 and refresh, you'll see yummy no longer prints because our number is no longer 5. It also has if else statements. Else if statements. Just like, again, I'm going to have Copilot auto-generate this code for me. So just like you'd come to expect in C, it follows the exact same syntax from C, all right? Parentheses, and you're good. The semicolons, you'll see, are showing up here. Semicolons are not required in JavaScript. You should try to include them if you can, but they are not required. So if I refresh right now, you'll see yummy2 gets printed. Yummy2 is this one right here, number equals 6, which our number equals 6. If I change this to 7, we'll see not yummy gets printed because it's not equal to either of these if statements. The semicolons, again, aren't required, but you should have them. So if I remove these, all these semicolons, and refresh, you'll see it works just fine. All right. refresh, 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 it works just fine. So again, semicolons aren't needed. That's why I was saying before, it's kind of like a mix between Python and C, because a lot of the syntax for your if statements, while loops, etc., are going to be very similar to C, but you have the added benefit of it being kind of like Python, where you don't need semicolons. Now, JavaScript can be white space sensitive, and it can be white space insensitive. All right, what does that mean again? The spacing can be important, or it may not be important at all. It all depends on how you program your JavaScript. And this is also why JavaScript can look like a complete mess by some developers sometimes, all right? Because when you give them so many options, every person is going to do something different, and it's all going to look super crazy. All right, it's all going to be super crazy. What do I mean by that? Right now, if I try to have both of these on the same line and refresh, it's not going to be happy and it's going to throw an error. But if I have both of these on the same line, separated by a semicolon, and refresh, you're going to see they work just fine. They work just fine. Why does this happen? When you don't use semicolons, it is white space dependent, right? You need to have a new line character between these two lines in order for things to render and run correctly. But if you have a semicolon, then just like how you can in C, you can effectively put all of these lines of codes on one single line, right? And this is actually common practice to do in order to shrink the size or the file size of your JavaScript files, because again, when you're sending stuff over the internet, it's important to make sure the data is as small as possible, right? The data is as small as possible. Any questions on that? Wow. This lemonade is really sour. Oh man, it's so good though. It is so good though. All right, so I don't see any questions, so we're gonna take a 3 to 5 minute break. While we're on break, just mess around with this stuff, mess around with it, maybe modify this one for inner text, modify it so instead of this text showing up, this variable shows up. Just mess around with stuff, check it out. All right, if you guys do have any questions, please ask them during the break and I will answer them. I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to leave the code up also. Alrighty. I am back. Hopefully y'all are ready to continue our journey here down JavaScript lane. Alright, down JavaScript lane. I don't see any questions, so I think we will just jump right into the re-intro and then we'll jump into the code. Alright? So, if you guys don't know, we are a rootkit nonprofit organization based here in the US of A. Don't go to college. Don't go to any other boot camp. Just get our cert, right? Just get our cert and then get a job. It's really that easy, right? It's really that easy. On top of all this other epic free stuff we're doing, bam, go over to our blog section and week 12 blog, enter it. All right, free merch we are giving away here on week 12. It's super simple, super easy, and it's free. Just click the green button here, prove that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, and you have entries now to win. On top of that, if you like what we're doing, if you click the link in the description of this video, or if you're on Twitch somewhere down below in the bio section, and I went to Twitch, that was the wrong place to go. You can see that it will take you to our Streams Lab charity event. We are a charity, so if you donate to us, it's 100% tax deductible. So avoid your taxes and donate today. Depending on how much you donate, you can unlock certain rewards like our epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, and our epic sweater. All donations are matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations. On top of that, we have pillars along the way, like streaming for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and shaving my beard. Super epic, super awesome, except for the last one. We don't need to get to that last one, all right? We don't need to get to that last one at all. All right, so let us continue our journey here. So we talked about JavaScript, how you can write JavaScript in your HTML using the script tags. Everything inside of it is going to be JavaScript. We talked about how you can make variables in JavaScript. You have to use this var. All right, that means it's going to be a variable. There are more options you have. We'll talk about those later. All right. Also, how do you do a print statement or the equivalent of a print statement? It's console log. And all of that will always log and show in the browser. Additionally, we have if statements, just like in the same syntax we do in C, if, else ifs, and else, all right? And then there's also this concept and this thing called the DOM that we can manipulate here in JavaScript. We can access the DOM by using the document variable, and it has a bunch of stuff attached to it by default, pretty much our entire page here. And we can navigate through HTML here by doing super long dot notation all the way to the item that we want, or we can use the IDs and search for the items based off the ID. So that's what we're showing off here, is we set an ID here to this H1 called demo, and then we're able to change the inner text or the inner HTML, and there's a bunch of other options here. Pretty much all of the attributes that you can set it here by doing dot and then the attribute's name, and then you can set it. Alrighty, let us continue our journey. So during the break, I said a really good challenge would be to set a number or set my number over to your inner text here, and that would be as simple as just making equal to that variable. And now you can see our 7 is up here. Our 7 is now up here. So super neat, super easy. Alrighty, let us continue. Let's talk about loops for a second. While and for loop, those are in here also. If we type in for, you'll see that you actually have multiple different for loops you can potentially access. We're going to just talk about the basic for loop for now. So if you just go down one to the one labeled for loop here, it will auto generate for you. This is the same setup as C. The same setup as C. So we have for with parentheses. Inside of it, the first section, you have 3 sections here with semicolons, right? 3 sections here with semicolons. The first section here is going to be where you can make a temporary variable that lasts the for loop. All right, var is a way you can make a variable. Let is another way you can make a variable. There's a couple ways, again, you can make variables in JavaScript. So you can just set this to var, right? It will work exactly the same. Next, just like C, this is where you're going to do your comparison. And the last is where you're going to do your incrementation, right? So every time this loops, this is how it's going to increment, right? So we can say index there to, let's say we want this to loop 5 times. And then inside here, we're going to just go ahead and print out the what loop we're on. So it's going to print out 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we refresh our page here, you're going to see 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 get printed out. Additionally, we got while loops, same syntax as C. All right, same syntax as C, parentheses, and then curly braces. And then here we can have a while. So while my number is less than 10, sure, we'll go with that. Here we're going to log, and let's do the fast log my number. And then we can do my number plus plus. So this is an infinite loop that will loop forever until a condition is met. So if we go here and refresh, you'll see that we get the 0 through 4 printed out from our for loop. And I guess we can do another log statement right here for log, and then this will be the for loop label, and then this one's going to be logging the while loop. There we go. So 0 through 4, and then 7 through 9, because our number starts at 7. There it is. So you can see this goes until the loop ends. Additionally, all of the options that we talked about before for like Python and how to end a loop abruptly exist here. So you can do a break and end a loop immediately. So you can see here, we've ended the loop immediately. You can also do a continue, which, where would be a good way to do? I guess I can do a continue here without going into an infinite loop. You can also do continues, right? You can also do continues. So those are all in here too. So again, you learn it in Python. We showed they all exist in C, and now we're showing they all exist here in JavaScript. So again, reinforcing the concept of you learn it once, you learn it everywhere, right? You learned it once in Python, and now you know pretty much every language, because every language has the exact same base, the exact same core. The syntax is slightly different, but overall the language is exactly the same, right? Overall the language is exactly the same. In here you can see the syntax is the exact same as C, except these are the added, this would be like the added thing you need to learn on top of this, all right? And I guess the var, right? And the var. Any questions on that, on the loops here, before we continue on? All right, I don't see any questions, so let us continue on our journey here. Now this is cool and all, but it gets even more powerful when we start integrating it with ways to program, right? Because inner text here is just a variable, right? Think of it as just a variable, which means you can do anything you normally can do with a variable. What do I mean by that? Well, a variable, you can assign a new value to it, but you don't have to just assign a new value to it. You could also add to that value. So if we rerun this and add 2, you'll see that we are no longer just adding hello world here, but we're adding the number 10 at the end of it. Now this unlocks a bunch of new capabilities for us. Specifically when we mess with this inner text, instead of saying inner text, we could say something like inner HTML instead. And then we can potentially use this to auto-generate using something like our for loop here. You potentially use this to auto-generate something like a bunch of, let's say, p tags. Let's make the closing p tag. And in here, let's go ahead and inside of this, do plus and plus, and then we'll add our index variable and then refresh. And look at that. Look at that. This is where the power of JavaScript comes into play. So as a review, what we just did here is we document get element by ID demo dot inner HTML. So we're going to add to the inner HTML that currently exists. We're not removing, we're not replacing, we're adding to. And every time this loops, we're going to add a new string, and that string is going to be an open p tag, the current index variable's value, and then a closing p tag. And in return, we are going to see that 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 all get printed here. And then at the very end, my number is equal to 10. So that's why my number gets printed right here. So this is where the cool, super epic power comes into. This is where the dynamicness of it really accelerates, because now you can dynamically generate content. This is a very simple example, but it shows how we can potentially, let's say you're making that Twitter code and expanding upon it. I give you an array of tweets. Now you can use a for loop to navigate through the array of tweets and now display every single tweet onto the screen, right? Onto the screen, which is super awesome, super convenient, and really starts opening our eyes and showing us the power of JavaScript and how it really will help us here with displaying our data from our API nicely onto the website. All right. Any questions on that before we continue on? All right, let us continue here on our journey. Let's see what they have for us next. You can access the window itself. So document is for the text. There's also something, so documents for all the HTML text. Your console is going to be for accessing the console, and window is for accessing the browser window itself. So .alert is how you can make an alert box show up. So if we do this, we can put some text in here. And now when we refresh our page, you'll see an alert box shows up and it says that text, and the page won't load fully until we click on OK, and then it will load. So that's something else, just so you know. Window is there. You can explore it and see all the different options you have for manipulating the browser's window. And I guess .print is how you can go to the printer settings. So now you see it wants to print. Next page. Comments are going to be // Again, they're showing the let example. You can also define multiple variables, just like you can in Python with commas. You can also predefine variables here, just like you can in C. What do I mean by that? We could say that we want var my number, but not actually do anything with my number until later on. And this wouldn't be var my number anymore. This would just be my number equals 7. Alrighty, let's see. I want their breakdown of let. There we go. There we go. So there's 4 ways, I guess. Does this even work on the newer libraries? I don't think this works. So maybe it only works in, I believe, going to be vanilla JavaScript. But technically there's 4 ways. Please don't use the 4th way. 3 ways to make variables in JavaScript. There's going to be var. So you could say var in the variable. You can say let in the variable. And you can say const in the variable. All right. So var is just describing it as a general variable, right, that you can use for storing, replacing, etc. your values. Let where's there we go. Let and const are new things added in 2015. Here we go. So general rule, always declare variables with const. Okay, I don't know why there isn't a good breakdown. Consts are going to be constant variables, aka variables that can never change. They're immutable. So once you make a variable const, they will never change. Now, there's pros to this. The pros is it's a lot faster and potentially more lightweight on the browser than when using the other variables, because it doesn't generate as much stuff behind the scenes. So const, I guess, is the best thing to use overall when declaring your variables if you never need it to change. Var is when you want variables to change and you want full everything, and then let, I just never remember what let is for. As you can tell, I never really used let. If you guys do have JavaScript / TypeScript questions, ask Snow. He is our JavaScript god. That's all I gotta say. It's a good thing he's not on the stream, because he would probably kill me right now. Let's see here. So var declared by the var keyguard are scoped to the immediate function body. Let variables are scoped to the immediate enclosing block. Don't. Okay. So the scoping. Okay, so let is exactly the same as var. It looks like the scoping is different, right? The scoping is different. So maybe I should start using let, so it frees up the memory more. So effectively, if you define a variable in here called var and this, you could potentially access that variable outside of these curly braces, which is the current scope it's in. So we could access the variable outside of it. But if you use let, it's going to be only accessible within the scope. You won't be able to access it outside the scope, so you wouldn't be able to access it outside over here. So yeah, lots of ways to make variables in JavaScript. I guess C technically has more ways, but you're being like very specific about it, if that makes sense. Like, it's for every single different type, but in JavaScript you got 4 different ways of basically declaring the same variable. All right, it's kind of silly. All right, it's kind of silly, I'm not gonna lie. All right, let us continue here. I'm just gonna bring this full so we can move through. Where you talk about operators, basically all the same as Python. You can see pretty much all the same here. Assignment works pretty much the same way as in Python. We haven't used bitwise or shift, so you don't really need to worry about those. Data types are slightly different. All right, you have strings, numbers, big int, booleans, undefined, null. 2 different items, undefined and null. So undefined means you just straight up didn't make it, and null means that it's completely empty. You made it, but it's empty. There's symbol, object, and if you use TypeScript, there's going to be more data types. And then there's also objects, arrays, and dates. And you can see here how these are kind of made. So objects are going to be pretty similar to dictionaries in Python. This is OG JSON, right? JSON is JavaScript object notation, or JavaScript object notation, because this is it right here. This is JSON in action, making an object here in JavaScript. It is a JavaScript thing. It is not a Python thing. It's, again, just convenient that they look similar, but this is the OG thing. So JSON is native to JavaScript, can be added to and implemented directly to JavaScript with no extra any weirdness going on. It just works in JavaScript. That's why it's usually the preferred language for APIs, not only because it's really thin and small compared to stuff like XML, but usually APIs are going to be serving data to a front end, and the front ends are usually made in JavaScript. So it's very, very convenient, right? Very, very convenient. You can make arrays. These are like arrays, just like arrays in Python, aka lists in Python. You can mix and match the data with any other data, unlike C. C the arrays in C must be the same data type. And then you have date objects. You can also make functions in JavaScript, which you say by function, and then the function's name, and then you give it parameters, and then you can make the function, and then you can return, you cannot return. Pretty similar to Python, except instead of saying def, you say function, and then you have the curly braces. And I think that's pretty much all we really need to go over right now. So let's mess with this a little bit, right? Let's mess with this a little bit. Any questions so far? If there are no questions, we shall continue. Shall we continue? I think this is actually enough for today. I think we've covered quite a lot. So let's actually end it here for today. So again, review. We covered JavaScript, how to add JavaScript to or inline to your HTML file. Use the script tags. Everything in the script tag is going to be JavaScript. JavaScript allows you to access the DOM, which is through the document variable. This is something that's pre-built in, so that's why you never declare it or anything. It has a bunch of stuff attached to it because it is an object, like different methods, like the getElementById, which is a convenient way to search through your HTML page and find elements you want to access. When you access those elements, you can access their attributes directly, or there's a couple of special attributes here like inner HTML and inner text that allow you to access the innards of that item. You can completely replace it, you can add to it. The options are potentially unlimited. And when you do that, you can then make in return a dynamic page, which we're missing here. Did I close it? Let's pull up. There we go. Dynamic page. So all of this content here was dynamically made by JavaScript after the fact. There is nothing here coded in the HTML besides the hello world. Now, using JavaScript is a full-on language just like Python and C. So we can declare variables by using var, by using my let number, and by using const. And I guess const, we have to give it a value because again, const is immutable. So when you create it, that is it. You cannot change it after the fact. These ones you can change after the fact. Var is going to be more global. Let's going to be specific to the current scope you are in. And again, just like C, you can predefine the variable but not give it anything. By default, it will have the value of null, which is equivalent to nothing. Null is a special type. So if you type in null, that is what it's equivalent to, is null, which is a special type, which is absolutely nothing. So my number equal to 7. So we're reassigning my number from being equal to null to being equal to 7. Console is a way we can access the console in the web browser. There's a bunch of pre-built functionality for that. So document for the HTML document, console for accessing the browser's console. We can log information. This is the equivalent to our print. And we're going to print out my number plus 5. Additionally, we have access to if statements. Access to logic like utilizing if statements, else if statements, and else statements. So you can see here, it follows the same template as C, right? Syntax as C. And we have loops here also, which follow the same syntax as C for your for loops and your while loops. Additionally, we have access to continue and break just like we do in Python and just like we do in C. And then if you want to, there is a special variable on top of console and on top of document. There is another special variable called window, which allows you to access the actual window of your web browser and do other special functionality. Any questions on that? Any questions on that? If not, that's all I got for you guys today. I would highly recommend you guys, spend time, mess around with this. Maybe see if you can convert any of your Python code over to JavaScript and have it output to the web page. So writing to the inner.html, the normal output you would log, right? The normal output you will, or I should say print out on the console in Python. Then just mess around with that. Maybe that's what we'll start off tomorrow, is copying over one of our Python programs. We'll see. All right, I don't see any questions. So we're going to call that for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one.